welcome to the Epic Fantasy Book Club podcast. Oh, that's a mouthful. I'm Joe. Here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
I've been waiting a while to do this. I am really excited about this book. I love this novel. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is one of those top, at least 20 best fantasy books of all times. First time I read this, I was 11 years old. What about you?
This is actually the first time I'm reading it.
Oh, really?
I've never read this book before.
I thought you had. Okay, sorry, my bad.
So I'm going into this with a fresh mind.
Yeah. So now you've read a lot of other fantasy books over the course of your life.
Yeah.
You've read more fantasy manga than I ever have.
Yes.
And probably ever will.
But people would say I should be ashamed to admit I've never touched Tolkien.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you should be ashamed. First time I touched Lord of the Rings, I was 26. Because the movie scared me off from it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, that said, I'm not trying to attack anyone who's a fan of the movies. Love what you love. Do so unashamedly. And never let anyone tell you otherwise. That's my view on it. And if the movies brought you to the book, perfect. The movies did their job. The movies ought to be praised for that.
All the movies got me was, all I remember of the movies is that I need to level up my Champions Online character.
Oh yeah, you always started playing that game whenever it flicked on. I just fell asleep every time. But the novels, of Lord of the Rings, are so freaking good. But we'll make that a book podcast next year. Sometime or something. Maybe in September, maybe from June or something. I don't know. We'll do something next year. Now, I'm just going to get some minor lore details out of the way. Now I've got the book in front of me, which, like I said, we actually learned quite a bit about the lore, especially of the Shire.
Mm-hmm.
The Bagginses had apparently lived in the neighborhood of the hill for, ever since the Hobbits showed up there. I think in the Third Age. Now, my knowledge here isn't perfect. When it comes to the Hobbits, that's lore I've forgotten. So, I watch Men of the West, In Deep Geek, and others religiously, but there are lore details I don't know. I have to read these things myself. Mm-hmm. That's the purpose of these book clubs.
A lot of the stuff discussing the Hobbits, it's build both family tree. But it's important to understand the lifestyle of the Hobbits and
Bilbo's character, because this helped shape him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Bagginses are someone who are people who brag about how boring they are. Adventure. Those aren't things any respectable Baggins could ever have. But what I love is how he had a toque for a mom, and the Toques are just badasses. They are the warrior tribe of the Hobbits.
It was mentioned that there were oddities amongst the Hobbits.
Yeah, now
because they liked adventure.
Now, old Toque, the oldest Hobbit who ever lived, until Bilbo, fathered 3 remarkable daughters. Now, the most famous of the 3 was Belladonna Toque. So apparently, I suspect she was probably the most pretty of them.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the most vivacious. Because, sometimes remarkable does not mean physical beauty, but so much as what's going on between your ears and what's in your heart. And Belladonna Toque certainly seems remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how she's described. But Belladonna never went on an adventure, but she became Bungo Baggins' wife. And apparently both families were fairly well-to-do. But the way it's implied, it seems like it was a love match. I don't think Hobbits really do political marriages. They're basically living in idyllic anarchy. Now, on page 5, we do get the lore of Gandalf having and a friend of Old Took, which immediately your alarm bells are going, oh, that's not very Hobbit-like. No, that will not do. But Gandalf, the remarkable Gandalf the Magnificent, shows up. I'm calling him the Magnificent. I love Gandalf.
It's like Gandalf the Magnificent shows up. Oh, great.
There went the neighborhood. I love this guy. Him and Old Took were apparently friends. So apparently Old Took was his contact in the Shire. And I get the feeling Gandalf kind of advised, because I know of the lore that Gandalf wanted a Baggins with Tookish blood in him for one of his adventures. So I got the feeling that he kind of advised Old Took to encourage Belladonna to date Bungo. And yeah. Now, the thing is, Old Took died. He had been away over the hill and across the water on businesses of his own. Yeah, so, like, Old Took seems to have also had an impact on Bilbo, as that was his grandpa. Mm. Now, we also find out that Old Took liked to encourage Gandalf to do fireworks, and Bilbo loved them. Like, what's his first reaction to them? He gets excited. He goes, oh, you used to do those fireworks from when I was a kid for my grandpa's birthday. And, it's like Bilbo becomes a kid again. And I actually really love that. That was such a charming moment. And now, I do like his, gave Old Took a pair of magic diamond studs that fastened themselves and never came undone. Not the fellow who used to tell such wonderful tales at parties about dragons and goblins and giants and the rescue of princesses and the unexpected luck of widows' sons. Not the man that used to make such particularly excellent fireworks. I remember those. Old Took used to have them on Midsummer's Eve. Splendid! They used to go up like great lilies and snapdragons and laburnums of fire and hang in the twilight all evening. Yeah. He doesn't want adventure. Just look at, he says, oh, terrible things, adventures. But that paragraph, that sounds like something that Belle from Beauty and the Beast would just gush out, right? Actually, I get the feeling that his mom was probably like Belle. And I get the feeling Bilbo doesn't realize it, but boy, is he craving adventure in the great wide world. Mm-hmm. What did you think of that moment? That's one of my favorite moments. Oh, sorry.
Someone's repressed.
So that was the only one that was very apt.
It's like, come on, you want this.
Like, stop whining about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, one detail I kind of went over. Well, I didn't go over exactly was some of the details about Bag End, which we get a history of, I think, on page either 5 or 6, which is actually very remarkable. Right. Bungo built Bag End with some of his wife's money, her dowry. But when you look at how comfortable it seems, I think it's money well spent.
Mm-hmm. That is a bit of what... That is one of the things that a dowry does need to be used for.
Yeah.
Was intended for.
Now, we also find out that Old Took had diamond... what was it? Magic diamond studs that fastened themselves and never came undone till ordered. Wow, okay. That's... I know that seems meaningless, but actually that'd be kind of handy. It's the equivalent of the modern day jeans or pant zipper that never goes down unless you order it. So I'm just saying, it's something that seems like not much of a gift, but it's actually very useful. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that kind of magic I approve of almost more than the fireball and whatnot. It's useful. It's just overlooked.
And mundane.
Now, what do you think of the part when you have, not the Gandalf who is responsible for so many quiet lads and lasses going off into the blue for mad adventures, anything from climbing trees to visiting elves, We're sailing in ships, sailing to other shores. Bless me, life used to be quite used to upset things badly in these parts once upon a time. Like, yeah, you were going easy repressed, right?
Yeah, it's like, come on.
You want it. But
You want it. You're bored in this town. Sure, going into a countryside town to live is nice,
yeah.
but sometimes there's a call to adventure where you just need to go and see for yourself.
Yeah. Now, that said, what do you think of the fact that, in a way, Bilbo's kind of prophesized what's going to happen to him? Sailing in ships, sailing to other shores. I get the feeling Gandalf has actually sent people off to Valinor by boat, sailing to the western shores before.
It also prophesizes one thing.
What Bilbo's going to one day do.
He'll need to climb trees.
Oh, I was thinking sailing ships, but yes, he's certainly going to probably climb trees. Actually, I think he does in The Hobbit. That's a few chapters later. I have not read this book in years. I love this book. I think I'm gushing too much. I don't know about you, but just from the first chapter, would you say my gushing is merited?
It's a nice, quiet start. Yeah. When I say quiet, it's very light. It's not too heavy.
Because some books start leaning into the stuff and the action and whatnot so freaking quick your head's left spinning.
And it's not an info dump that leaves you confused.
Weirdly, this first chapter reminds me of the first chapter of Dragonheart, where it's just the training session between Bowen and Einan.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, that thing info dumps the code on you, but it's quiet. They're just training near the Roman fort.
Mm-hmm. And it's not discussing the geopolitical landscape of...
Yeah, although it's hinting at it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll get to the hint later. But first, let's meet the dwarves. We have... I'm going to read their names in order. I've got them right here. We have Dwalin, Balin, or Balin, Keely, Feely, Dory, Nori, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Biffer, Bofer, Bomber, Thorin. Yeah. Now, a lot of arguments are that these dwarves are pretty indistinguishable from each other. I can't talk today, it seems. But we do get some personality in some of them. Contrary to the accusations against Tolkien, although I do like the... now, come along in and have some tea, is what Bilbo says to the first one. I think. No, wait. The first one was Dwalin. Now, if Dwalin... let me see. What does he request? I'm just trying to find it. I'm just about to take tea. Dwalin agrees to tea. Balin requests beer. And now we're gonna look at some of the symbolism of the choice of drinks. And the thing is, Dwalin agrees to tea, and this is, tea symbolizes in Buddhism and Taoism a life of simplicity that brings great peace. That's interesting. Whereas Balin, beer is the drink of the everyday working class. So Balin's probably working class. Mm-hmm. And beer also symbolizes the virtues of ordinary day-to-day life. And Balin's actually going on an adventure, so he's not really seeking that right now. Friendship, loyalty, and unpretentiousness. Yeah, that does seem to be what the dwarves are portraying themselves as. They're friends with each other. They're not some of them are not exactly pretentious. There are a few of them. And as to the idea of loyalty, I think, Balin is loyal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at the same time, Dwalin and Balin are brothers. So I think that there's a bit of an age difference, but they both seem very close, which I think is interesting. that I'd have to look up their ages on the Wikia, which we could always make later videos on each of the dwarves for fun, which that would be outside the book club podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Unless someone in the comments says, actually, can you include that with your book club so that way you're providing extra lore here, which I don't mind doing that and sticking it in between each of the book club videos, but just tell us what you guys think or want. And seed cake is what Balin requests. Now, ordinarily we'd get into food symbolism, but we couldn't find anything on seed cakes, so we'll just say it's an interesting taste. There are better foods, though. I mean, blueberries were probably right there. Come on, man. Obviously, Balin's not known for his wisdom. I mean, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, they're right there. Right for the plucking. And he didn't take them. Even apple pie, pumpkin pie, blueberry pie, chocolate pie, anything. But seed cakes. Like, come on. Not slamming seed cakes, just judging a little. Keely at your service in Philly. Okay, so those two come along. Now, let's see what they end up requesting. We don't really see when they're first introduced. So that's a little interesting. Those two probably have the least amount of personality. Now we're then introduced to Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, and Gloin. Wow. Okay. All of them asked for, some called for ale, porter, and coffee. All of them for cakes. Oh boy. These are pigs, not dwarves. Now, ale has the same symbolism as beer. Cake symbolizes overindulgence. And yeah. And also apparently the dream of rising higher than your current rank, which I think is a beautiful dream. Coffee apparently symbolizes intellect, creativity, and it's just a streak of revolution. So, in a way, they are wanting a revolution because Smaug is now the evil overlord of the Dale region and of under the mountain. So they're kind of trying to push for a revolution, and a very positive one. Then we're introduced to Bifur, Bofer, Bomber, and especially Thorin. Wow. Okay, so now their request tea. We went over that. Now we're kind of also going to have to discuss the red wine, raspberry jam, and apple tart. Well, we're not actually going to analyze all the foods. There's too much. These guys are pigs, but we're just going to look at the red wine. Now, red wine has an interesting meaning in happiness and friendship. Also, it's a symbol of transformation. And given that Gandalf and Thorin want it, Thorin does the transformation from exiled prince to crowned king, then the ultimate transformation when Eru Iluvatar's gift is given to him. Gaff. And Gandalf, would you say he's transformed? I mean, he's a Maiar, taking on human flesh, essentially. So that kind of goes without saying. As for, the only thing is, apples, I'll just get into that, symbolize good health and future happiness. And they're often associated also with love and youth because of Aphrodite and Idun. So, looking at that, because I know one of them ordered apple tart by Bifur. So, yeah, like right there, there's hints, there's characterization that's happening here with the food. Seriously, guys, we haven't covered all the food symbolism and whatnot. There's so much that could be, stated here for character description. Although, what do you think of the first song? Chip the glasses and crack the plates. When they're singing about breaking everything, and Bilbo's chasing after them, all the crying.
Trolled.
You think they're trolling him?
Why else would they? He's making it so unbelievably easy for them
that they just can't help but pick on him a little. That's something I loved here. Like, I thought it was fun.
It's nothing deep lore for that song.
No, they're just being a little mean. They remind me of little boys picking on the littlest boy.
Yeah, and it's probably there more to grab the attention of younger audiences.
Well, one has to bear in mind this was originally composed as a bedtime story for Tolkien's kids, notably Christopher and Priscilla, Tolkien's favorites. So this part, I almost think you can almost see Christopher and Priscilla as kids giggling. Chip the glasses and crack the plates, blunt the knives and bend the forks. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates.
I could just imagine Christopher reading that at the tea house with the
other great founders of fantasy,
and them just roaring in laughter just over that song.
Oh, you mean up in heaven? Or you mean at the bar with the Inkling meetings?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Sorry. Yeah, you were very clear there. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a bar, not a tea house, but yeah, I think it was the Eagle, and it's just, yeah, I could see him giggling and some of the men roaring with laughter. Probably C.S. Lewis and his brother. Tolkien probably thought himself very clever with that song, and he is very clever. It's a great song. Seriously, if you're reading with us, do give it a good read. Reading out loud, it's even more ridiculous. Cut the cloth and tread on the fat. Pour the milk on the pantry floor. Leave the bones on the bedroom mat. Splash the wine on every door. Dump the crocks in a boiling bowl. Pound them up with a thumping pole. And when you're finished, if any are whole, send them down the hall to roll. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates, so carefully with the plates. Now, I kind of feel the last part was then kind of showing a bit of mercy. We're like, okay, carefully with the plates. But everything up to that is basically, it's like a Disney song where they're just taunting.
It's like a bunch of people trolling some of OCD.
Yeah. Well, Bilbo probably does have OCD. You know what he reminds me of?
What?
Alfred Pennyworth from Batman Comics. He's a neat freak like them.
Like him, yeah.
Yeah, although he could also be a little pompous and dignified and whatnot, and funny, like Alfred. Now, each instrument mentioned has a different meaning. We are going to cover each of them because they're interesting. Flutes represent rural life and nature, and that's quite interesting. You've got violins and fiddles, which share the same meaning. So we have cold, sadness, tranquility, sympathy, fragility, and joy. It could also represent power, aggression, and strength. So this is really interesting, as well as anguish and solitude. Mm-hmm. So fiddles actually have a lot of meanings and symbolism there. And it's Dori, Nori, and Ori who take up the flutes. Kili and Fili who pick up the fiddles. So Fili and Kili are expressing everything that the fiddle describes. Same as the viols, which are played by Dwalin and Balin. So they're expressing the same thing as Kili and Fili. As to clarinets, before that we'll get to drums, are a sacred tool connecting heaven and earth, and for maintaining the rhythm of the world's order, according to some mythologies. Mm-hmm. So that basically a mediator, in a way. That's very interesting. And, of course, we have clarinets, which are a warning or a threat. So here it's warning of danger. And the ones warning of danger are Bifur and Bofur. So they might be a little worried about this upcoming quest. The harp is something that's seen on jewelry or in funerary art. And it's a symbol of worship in heaven or hope. It's also a symbol of hope. So Thorin's always hoped to reclaim his kingdom, but it's a symbol of heaven, but also of possible doom.
He's the hope of the dwarves.
Yeah, and good eye there. And he's also the one who doesn't realize it, but harps are also symbols of nobility and of femininity to an extent. because you often see the image of the lady playing the harp. But he's upper class, but he just advocated, I'm not making it through this story. You know what I mean? Like with that imagery. And yeah, I know it's a very beautiful harp, but at the same time, this is what it symbolizes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very grim
thought. There's a reason why when we imagine someone playing the harp, often it's a blonde woman with angel wings, like a female angel, but playing the harp. That's the common visual that a lot of people have.
Yeah, and then we get Tolkien's beautiful song, Far Over the Misty Mountains Cold. I really like this song. I'm not going to harp on too much about it, but I really love it. Seriously, guys, read it, sing it. It's a great song. If anyone's around and doesn't want you singing it, sing it. We also find out on page 21 that Keely and Philly are the youngest. Now, that's just something interesting. And if you look at the fiddle meaning with the, cold, sadness, tranquility, sympathy, fragility, and joy, isn't youth all those things in some ways, as well as anguish and solitude, as well as power and aggression and strength? These are all things that string instruments symbolize. So there's a lot being said about their characters there. And when you look at the world building now, Mount Graham. Graham, or Balmung, is the sword of Sigmundur from Norse myths.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a sword that Sigmundur pulled out of a tree, rather akin to Arthur with Excalibur with a stone. So Mount Graham. And the goblins came from Mount Graham. Pretty interesting. In the Battle of the Green Fields. Now, green means eternity, and fields, you generally get the image of an endless field. So that's a pretty interesting visual he's giving us. Now, it's Bulroar, the great-grand-uncle of Old Took, who hit Goldfimble's head clean off with a wooden club. That must have been quite the Hobbit. I'm just saying, like, he knocked an orc's head off its shoulders. That is impressive. Very impressive. I really love that bit of world building. And
that must have been one strong Hobbit.
Yeah. And we also get glowing, doubting Bilbo on the same page, which causes Bilbo to freak out, and he tells them that he's like, well, I'm ready for this. I can do this. It's like, what was it? I had a great-great-great-grand uncle once, Bulroar Took. And yes, but that was long ago, said Glowing. I was talking about you. Right. Now, that's where Glowing and Bilbo kind of get into it. And it's Gandalf who rushes to Bilbo's defense, saying, now, hold on, I chose this guy.
Just wait until he's done his existential crisis.
Yeah, and once you get him in a pinch, like, he's going to pull through. He's like a dragon in a pinch, which that's pretty high praise and poetic license. Bilbo's not quite that good in a pinch, but he's almost that good. That said, the map that Gandalf shows was apparently made by Thror. I think Thror. There, that's how you pronounce it. And it's a plan of the mountain that it came from. And Thorin had no idea, that it was even a thing. Of course, they'll have to get through, I think, Mirkwood and the Withered Heath. No, wait. Yeah, I'm just looking at that. Mirkwood and Withered Heath are where... Well, they have to get through Mirkwood, but Withered Heath is where the great dragons are bred. So obviously a place you want to nuke. I'm kidding. Actually, no, I shouldn't crack that joke. But we get some minor details about Smaug as well here. But as we learn that... Oh, we also learned that, real quick, Thrain the Old was the founder of the kingdom under the mountain. And the thing is, they were so rich that and so skilled in craft that even the worst blacksmith could earn a king's fortune and whatnot. Now, that's pretty high praise.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's exactly exaggeration when you see how much treasure and loot the dragon has in his bloody cave. And, of course, Smaug came along to the Dale region, burnt down Dale, chased out the dwarves and ate hundreds of them, and the dwarves escaped. Of course, we do get the image of Thror in Thrain. I'm going to call him the younger here to differentiate him from the other Thrain, who came out with singed beards, which was a little funny, but it's a very bleak story what happened to them.
And we see the, essentially, I think the origin of the dragon hoarding loot and whatnot.
In modern fantasy. That has its roots in mythology, as we both know.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Tolkien is sticking to mythology there. Yeah, you're right. His father's halls were full of armor and jewels and carvings and cups, and the toy market of Dale was a wonder of the north. So they made toys. Does that mean in this world Santa was a dwarf? I'm kidding. I couldn't resist that.
And he has elves to help him out.
Yes, the Noldor, except they'll keep fighting and squabbling. Yes. We won't be keeping you guys for too much longer. We're just going over some of the lore. Now, Thorin is one interesting note on page 30. Thorin is ignorant of the fate of Dale. He thinks it's gone. The people are gone there. They're not. He's not been to Dale before. So they're going on this quest to a place they've never been to since the fall of the mountain. What do you think of that?
Wow.
I'm just saying, they're kind of treading into the unknown, like fools, in a way. They probably should have done a bit better reconnaissance before this quest. But, well, yeah. Now, that said, Thror was apparently killed in the mines of Moria by Azog the Goblin. And now we get the interesting note of, on the 21st of April, 100 years ago, last Thursday, Thrain, the father of Thorin, disappeared, went away. That's pretty specific. And I like how Thorin, and has never been seen by you since. True, said Thorin. I get the feeling Thorin was like, yeah, just get on with it. I love how Gandalf sometimes, I get the feeling sometimes his memory's going. Like, he's just treading into left field and forgetting the immediate situation.
I could imagine a conversation between Gandalf and Paladin.
Yeah, where they do something similar. Yeah, Paladin does tend to do that too. But Paladin's kind of doing it on purpose. I don't know. I'm not always sure Gandalf is. But I definitely like both characters. Nice reference. Well, Paladin's based off of Gandalf.
Yeah. It's just a meeting between the two would be quite
funny. Now we do get a rather bleak backstory here. Apparently Thrain disappeared into the never even got near the mountain. And apparently had gotten the map from his own father and ended up a prisoner in the dungeons of the Necromancer. Whom is Sauron, as we find out in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the moment you hear the word Necromancer, you know there's bad business involved.
And apparently tortured Thrain so badly, Thrain could not remember who he was. He could not remember anything except the map and the key. What do you think about, his very consciousness was obliterated from him?
That is insane.
What did he endure down there? That's scary. And he was down there probably for a long time. Decades, possibly, considering how long dwarves live for. Mm-hmm. No joke. I would not want to be him in those dungeons. Probably nightmares beyond nightmares. I'm just saying. Nightmares beyond nightmares. And that's kind of how the first chapter sort of ends. Like, I know, like, it's like everyone remembers The Hobbit as a very cheery thing, but I'm sorry, but that's pretty bleak. That's just, I don't know about you, but I was left going, wow, I don't remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do remember the necromancer being mentioned several times in The Hobbit, but I don't remember, oh yeah, your dad basically died to him in his dungeons after being tortured for decades. Yeah. Tolkien's bleak.
Yeah.
And who says The Hobbit's not dark fantasy? I'm kidding. So what do you think of the first foray?
Well, you have the setting. There was enough description to get an idea of what was going on. You don't get too much of a big info dump. It's straight to the point, and it isn't complicated.
You get a good sense of each of the characters' personalities.
Mm-hmm. You could look at the symbolism, or you could just read it straight out.
Yep. That's the beauty of Tolkien. You could read it in a lot of ways, but the authorial intent is still there. In that he wants a grand, beautiful world with beautiful language and epicness to it. Who so far is your favorite character?
Thorin.
Why Thorin?
Because he's so snobby about everything.
Yeah, he is a little snobby. There's also a bit of a melancholy to the character, right?
Yeah. What the three characters that really stand out so far are Bilbo, Gandalf, and Thorin.
Now, my favorite of the three is Bilbo for the entire like just looking at the entire book in question. This was one of the first fantasy books I think I ever read in my life. So Bilbo has a special place in my heart. But that said, in just the first chapter, I really love Gandalf.
It's like all three are very animated characters.
Well, Gandalf eventually has those smoke rings around, I think, his hat, and he just seems like he's forgetting half of his crap. But the thing with Gandalf is, when you read Lord of the Rings, there are some melancholic aspects to him as well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, he's forgotten the beauty of Valinor to a limited extent. No, basically heaven. He's been in the mortal plane for so long, he's started to forget tidbits of it. What do you think? That's a little sad.
Mm-hmm.
And the more he strains out his memory, the more there are things that escape him, it seems. So there's a melancholy there. But that's in Lord of the Rings.
I see. So I have read other novels where deific beings have been stuck in a mortal form, and the more they stay in that mortal form, the more they forget about their roots, and the more they try to strain themselves to try and remember something, it puts such a very big strain on them. For example, I've read one story where this deity would try and figure out, okay, I need to remember something from my memory, and he'd break down in a seizure.
Okay. I remember Amalthea. Remember her? The last unicorn?
Mm-hmm.
Happened with her. Paladin, when he's stripped of his godhood, and he becomes Valinor, I think it is, the Wanderer, he becomes an elf. Well, very blessed, long-lived elf. But the thing is, Paladin admits eventually that he's forgetting a lot of details from his godly days. Now, he knows for a fact he will be judged for also, as a mortal, when he dies, also for his godly deeds, because he's the same man. But that said, he basically at one point breaks down crying with one goddess, because sometimes he feels such despair and pain because he's going, I want to remember it all, but I can't. And it's a very sad, heartbreaking scene. It's not the greatest novel, that one book, but it's a very tragic scene, and you really feel bad for Paladin.
And each time there's a different symbolism involved. Like some it's humility, others it's rebirth, sometimes it's more despair, new experiences,
even death to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, here, Gandalf, but with that said, Gandalf, that's Lord of the Rings. That's not looking at the first chapter. I just found him hilarious.
Yeah, and
a bit of a douche. Yeah, it's like, what was it that he said to Bilbo? Well, Gandalf basically says, well, I answered your question. I basically said, sure, you can go on an adventure since that's what you asked for. What? I didn't ask for that, was Bilbo's reply, essentially. Not in so many words, but it's one of the most funny exchanges. I loved it because Gandalf's like, well, you asked if I'm that Gandalf and if I'm still sending people off on adventures. So I took that as you asking if I could send you on one.
That's twisting his words.
Yeah, but it's funny.
It's a douche thing to do. But that's what Gandalf is good.
Yeah, so you love him as well.
Yeah.
But I also, real quick, what do you think of the slapstick comedy with Bilbo? Because remember, he keeps falling on his chin or...
It's appropriate.
Yeah. So Tolkien had a very funny sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this went on for very long, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we did a full book review of one thing? I don't think that we could do that.
I mean, there's only so many hours before our viewers' patience would run thin.
Yeah. So, once again, do leave a like if you like this video. Comment. Tell us what your favorite parts of this chapter was and what you're looking forward to in later chapters. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if we've earned that subscription. Share the video. That'll certainly help us because we're trying to grow. We want to reach 1,000 subscribers before April. And if we do, we will actually publish the first chapter of a dark fantasy horror novel we've been working on, which I'm hoping is a nice love letter to Dracula, the novel.
Oh, yeah.
So until next time, take care and many happy returns.